The paramedics refused to let me stand, not because I couldn't, because every time I tried, my left leg collapsed beneath me. I was lying on my own dining room floor staring at the chandelier when I heard my wife sigh. "Oh, come on, Owen! You're so dramatic." One of the paramedics looked at her. "Ma'am, your husband may have broken something." She rolled her eyes. "He does this every time he wants attention." The younger medic didn't answer. He simply cut open the leg of my trousers. A few seconds later, his expression changed. "We need the trauma board." The room became very quiet, except for my wife. She was still annoyed. "My name is Owen Carlisle. I'm 63 years old. For 35 years, I designed acoustic concert halls. If you've ever sat in a theater where you could hear a whisper from the stage, there's a chance I helped build it. Proportion mattered, balance mattered. One small miscalculation could ruin an entire building. Ironically, the only place I stopped measuring risks was inside my own marriage. Elaine wasn't always cruel. She was funny, fearless, the kind of woman who convinced complete strangers to dance at weddings. When we met, I thought I'd found someone who made life lighter. I didn't notice. She also enjoyed making other people the joke. At first, it was harmless, hiding my car keys, changing my phone language, replacing sugar with salt. Everyone laughed, including me. "Lighten up. It's just a prank." Those became her favorite words. As the years passed, the jokes changed. She once loosened every bolt on my office chair just enough that it collapsed during a video meeting. She told everyone for weeks. Another time, she switched my allergy medication with sleeping tablets before a charity banquet. I slept through my own keynote speech. She laughed so hard, she cried. Whenever I complained, she'd kiss my cheek. "You survive everything. That's why I love teasing you." I wanted to believe her, so I did. 3 months before our anniversary, my orthopedic surgeon gave me strict instructions. After my knee replacement, no sudden twisting, no falls, no unstable chairs. The implant needed time. Elaine came with me to the appointment. She heard every word. She even joked with the doctor. "I guess I'll have to behave." The doctor smiled politely. "I really hope so." Sunday dinners were sacred in our house. Neighbors, friends, sometimes business associates. Elaine loved entertaining. Long oak table, candles, fresh flowers, perfect presentation. She always insisted people remember the evening. That Sunday, they certainly did. I arrived carrying dessert. Everyone was already seated. Elaine stood behind my chair, smiling. "Your throne awaits." People chuckled. I smiled too. Without thinking, I started sitting down. The chair disappeared. She yanked it backward, hard. I didn't land on the floor. My healing leg folded beneath me first. Then everything else followed. The crack echoed through the dining room. Not loud, just enough. Enough for every conversation to stop. Enough for me to know something inside my knee wasn't where it belonged anymore. I couldn't breathe. Not from pain, from shock. Elaine burst into laughter. "Oh my God, you actually fell for it." Several guests laughed nervously. One woman covered her mouth. Someone whispered, "That's not funny." Elaine waved dismissively. "He'll be fine. He always overreacts." Then she looked down at me, still laughing. "You're so dramatic." 20 minutes later, the paramedics wheeled me toward the ambulance. As they closed the doors, one of our dinner guests hurried across the driveway. It was Martin Alvarez. Not a lawyer, not a police officer, a structural engineer I'd worked with for nearly 20 years. He handed me a small envelope. "I think you should have this." "What is it?" He looked back toward the house, then answered quietly. "Your wife asked me something before everyone arrived." I frowned. "What?" She wanted to know how much force it would take to damage a knee replacement without permanently crippling someone. The ambulance doors closed, the siren started. I stared at the envelope in my hand. For the first time, I wasn't wondering whether Elaine's prank had gone too far. I was wondering why she had wanted an engineer's opinion before she pulled the chair away. The envelope stayed in my jacket pocket until midnight. Not because I forgot about it, because I already had enough pain to deal with. My knee surgery had taken less than 2 hours. The surgeon didn't look angry when he visited my room. He looked disappointed. "I remember warning both of you." I nodded. "So do I." He glanced at the chart. The implant shifted. The ligaments suffered significant damage. "The good news, we can repair it. The bad news, you've just added another year to your recovery." Another year because someone wanted a laugh. The next morning, I finally opened Martin's envelope. Inside wasn't a letter, it was a folded cocktail napkin. Across it, Elaine's handwriting. If someone with a new knee falls backward, what's most likely to fail first? Beneath the question, Martin had written his reply, depends on the angle. Why? There was no answer, just that question, asked hours before dinner. I didn't call Elaine, she called me. Feeling better? No, you'll survive. I always do. She laughed. See? That's the spirit. Then she changed the subject. The insurance company called. What about? They're sending paperwork off. I'll handle it. No, I'll read it myself. Silence. Then, you're on pain medication. You don't need the stress. That sentence stayed with me, not because it sounded caring, because it sounded prepared. 3 days later, I was transferred to a rehabilitation center. Not luxurious, not depressing, just quiet, every afternoon. People gathered in the therapy garden, recovering stroke patients, athletes rebuilding torn muscles, retired teachers learning to walk again. Nobody cared what job you'd had, only whether you took one more step today than yesterday. On my 5th afternoon, an elderly woman rolled beside me in her wheelchair. Mind if I sit here? Please. She introduced herself. Clara, former occupational therapist, retired 20 years. She noticed the surgical brace immediately. Knee replacement. Second one. She nodded knowingly. Then she surprised me. You didn't fall by accident. I looked at her. How do you know? She smiled gently. Because accidental falls make people blame themselves. You've spent the last 5 minutes blaming someone else. She wasn't wrong. Clara listened quietly while I described the dinner, the jokes, the chair, the laughter. When I finished, she asked only one question. Did your wife ever apologize? I thought not once, not for the chair, not for the surgery, not for the pain. Only, you'll get over it. Clara folded her hands. I spent 34 years helping abuse victims. Physical, psychological, financial. Do you know the first thing almost every victim says? I shook my head. It wasn't that bad. She looked directly into my eyes, until one day, it is. That evening, instead of going home after therapy, I asked Martin to meet me. We sat in a small cafe across from the rehabilitation center. He looked uncomfortable. I almost threw that napkin away. What changed your mind? He sighed. Because it wasn't the first strange question. I leaned forward. What do you mean? He reached into his briefcase, pulled out a notebook. I'm embarrassed, I kept notes. You kept notes. I'm an engineer. I write everything down. He turned several pages. 3 months earlier, Elaine had asked him whether stair railings could be loosened without looking damaged. 2 months earlier, whether a cane with a cracked shaft would support an adult's weight. 6 weeks earlier, whether certain ceramic floor tiles became dangerously slippery with furniture polish. Every question had sounded hypothetical. Every question related to accidents. My accidents, the cane I'd stopped using after it suddenly snapped, the staircase where I'd nearly fallen, the kitchen floor I'd blamed on wet shoes. None of them had seemed connected. Until now. Martin quietly closed the notebook. I don't think your wife likes pranks. I swallowed hard. What do you think she likes? He looked out the cafe window. I think she likes situations where everyone believes the accident explains itself. I didn't answer, because suddenly, every funny story Elaine loved telling had exactly one thing in common. I was always the one getting hurt, and everyone else was always too busy laughing to ask whether it had really been an accident. I didn't hire a private investigator. I hired an archivist, not someone who followed people, someone who followed paper. His name was Edwin Shaw, 72 years old, retired university records specialist, the kind of man who believed every important answer was already written down somewhere. If you knew where to look. He met me in the rehabilitation center library. No trench coat, no hidden camera, just 3 sharpened pencils, a leather notebook, and reading glasses hanging from a cord around his neck. Martin introduced us. Owen, if Elaine leaves fingerprints, Edwin finds them. Edwin smiled politely. I don't investigate people. I investigate patterns. He asked me to list every accident I'd had in the last 5 years. I laughed. There have been too many. Good. That usually means there's something to compare. So we started the broken cane, the slippery kitchen floor, the loose office chair, the collapsing garden bench, the dining chair, every incident, every date, every location, every witness. He filled page after page. never interrupting, never judging, just writing. Finally, he circled something. Interesting. What? Every accident happened less than 48 hours before an insurance assessor, property appraiser, or financial review. I frowned. What does that mean? I don't know yet, but coincidence usually gets tired long before this. 2 days later, Edwin called. I think I found the beginning. He asked me to meet him at the city archives, not the courthouse, not a law office, a basement filled with old property records, permit files, and dusty cabinets. He spread several documents across a table. Our house purchased 28 years earlier. Mortgage, renovation permits, insurance updates, nothing unusual, until he pointed to a small amendment filed 18 months ago. I don't remember signing this. You didn't. I stared at him. What? The signature isn't forged. It simply isn't yours. I looked closer. The signature belonged to Elaine. She had amended the occupancy declaration, quickly, legally, without ever mentioning it. What does it change? Edwin turned another page. The house is now classified as a residence occupied by one primary owner and one dependent adult. I blinked. Dependent? He nodded. You. I actually laughed, not because it was funny, because it was absurd. I've never needed a caregiver. I still work. I still travel. I still manage my own finances. I know. He pushed another document toward me. That's why this matters. The amendment hadn't given Elaine control over my money. It gave her something else. Authority to make household safety decisions. On behalf of the dependent occupant, meaning every broken chair, every replaced handrail, every home modification, had officially become her responsibility, not mine. Edwin quietly folded his hands. Do you know why that concerns me? I shook my head. Because if someone repeatedly creates hazards, while officially responsible for preventing them, they aren't merely careless, they're failing the exact duty they voluntarily accepted. The room suddenly felt much smaller. That evening, I didn't return home. Instead, I asked Martin to drive me somewhere unexpected, the old concert hall, the very first building I'd ever designed. It had recently closed for renovations. The caretaker recognized me immediately. Mr. Carlisle, we still tell people about the acoustic ceiling you created. He unlocked the auditorium. The room was empty. Thousands of silent seats, one stage. Perfect sound. I walked slowly to the center aisle, sat carefully, closed my eyes. For the first time in weeks, everything became quiet. Then I remembered something. 23 years earlier, while we were building this hall, Elaine had visited the site. She'd laughed because one apprentice kept pulling chairs away from co-workers as a joke. I remembered exactly what she'd said. One day someone's going to get seriously hurt. She knew even then. She had always known. This wasn't childish humor. She understood exactly where the line was. She simply enjoyed watching other people cross it. When I opened my eyes, Martin was standing near the stage. Ready to go? I nodded. No, I'm ready to stop pretending every accident deserves another chance. Because I finally understood something. Elaine didn't need punishment. She needed something much worse. A world where nobody would ever again mistake her cruelty for comedy. I didn't expose Elaine. I disappeared for 34 days. I answered no calls, no messages, no explanations. I checked into a rehabilitation lodge 3 counties away under my middle name, finished physical therapy, walked every morning, read books I'd been meaning to read for years. For the first time in decades, there was no one laughing every time I entered a room. The silence healed more than my knee. Back home, people began asking questions, not because of me, because Elaine couldn't stop telling the story. She repeated it everywhere. Dinner parties, yoga classes, wine club. Oh, Owen is so sensitive. I barely touched the chair. He turned it into a national emergency. At first, people laughed, until someone asked, "How's his recovery?" She didn't know. Another asked, "Have you visited him?" She hadn't. Someone else quietly wondered if it was really that funny. Why hasn't he come home? The jokes slowly stopped working. Not because I defended myself, because she kept repeating them. To people who were beginning to hear something else. Cruelty. On the 35th day, I returned, not to the house, to the annual Harmony Arts Foundation Gala. I'd chaired the foundation for 12 years. It restored historic theaters across the country. Architects, musicians, donners, craftsmen. Everyone important to my professional life attended every year. Elaine loved that evening, mostly because she enjoyed being introduced as Owen Carlisle's wife. She arrived wearing a silver evening gown, confident, smiling, completely certain I'd either forgiven her or wouldn't show up. Then I walked into the ballroom. Using only a cane, slowly, comfortably, the room became unusually quiet. People came over, asked about my recovery. Not one person asked Elaine how she was doing. They asked me. During dinner, the foundation director stepped onto the stage. Ladies and gentlemen, before we begin tonight's Restoration Awards, we have one special announcement. I frowned. Nobody had told me about an announcement. He smiled toward my table. For years, Owen Carlisle has quietly funded a new initiative, a program dedicated to improving accessibility in historic performance venues. Ramps, adaptive seating, recovery grants for injured artists save stage design. Hundreds of theaters would benefit. He continued. Owen asked us to wait until tonight to reveal its official name. A curtain behind him slowly lifted. Large silver letters appeared. The Owen Carlisle Balance Project. The audience applauded. Elaine smiled proudly, assuming it had been named after her. Then the director continued. The project honors the woman who first taught Owen that real balance isn't about standing, it's about helping others stay standing. A photograph appeared. Not Elaine. My mother, Diane Carlisle, a nurse, who spent 47 years helping injured patients learn to walk again. Elaine's smile disappeared. She'd forgotten. My mother's name was Diane too. The project had never been about her. Not even for a second. The director wasn't finished. We'd also like to thank the rehabilitation specialists whose work inspired this foundation. Therapists, nurses, recovery centers, the paramedics who treated me. Even Martin received recognition for helping redesign safer performance seating. Everyone who had helped me heal was invited onto the stage, everyone except Elaine. Nobody excluded her. There was simply no reason for her to be there. As applause filled the ballroom, I realized something. I hadn't spent weeks planning revenge. I'd spent weeks building something useful, something that would outlive both of us. People weren't clapping because my marriage had fallen apart. They were clapping because hundreds of strangers would walk more safely through theaters for generations. That mattered much more. After the ceremony, Elaine found me alone in the lobby. You embarrassed me. I looked at her quietly. No, I introduced the people who helped me stand again. She stared at me. What about us? I smiled sadly. There hasn't been an us since the moment you decided my pain was entertainment. She looked around. Nobody was watching us. Nobody was recording. Nobody cared about an argument. They were too busy celebrating the foundation. For the first time in her life, she wasn't the center of the room, and that was the only punishment she couldn't laugh away. A year later, the Balance Project had funded accessibility improvements in 87 historic theaters. Thousands of people benefited. Young dancers recovering from injuries, veterans using mobility aids, children with disabilities attending concerts for the first time. Every entrance carried a small bronze plaque, not with my name, not with my mother's. Just one sentence: real strength is measured by how safely others can stand beside you. Whenever I visit one of those theaters, I still pause before taking my seat. Not because I'm afraid someone will pull the chair away, because I appreciate something I once took for granted. A chair isn't just furniture, it's trust. And once someone teaches you they enjoy taking that away, the wisest thing you can do is never give them the chance again.